Well, the Washington Commanders have finally gotten their schedule released. We are going to go over it in this video starting right now. And folks, welcome back to another podcast here on the Washington Football Maniacs channel. My name is Greg. I am your host. If you're new here, this channel, of course, is dedicated to news and commentary for the Washington Commanders. So if you're down with that, please make sure that you have subscribed to the channel. And when you do, also hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases. So with that said, let's get into this video. So here we are. The schedule was released yesterday, and it's very exciting because it just feels like it gets us that much closer to the season. Now, of course, we've had OTAs, and I'll do a video for that as well. But, looking at the schedule, certainly, on paper, to me, it just looks like a fun schedule. Doesn't look like a bad schedule or necessarily a great schedule. It just looks like a fun schedule. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. All right, so here we are. We got the schedule. Now, ignore the ignore that game because that was played in January. So we're on the preseason. Two preseason games, of course. Against the Dolphins, against the Patriots. Two teams that I think, these would be fun games, I think. If you happen to be in the Miami area and you're a Washington fan, you want to be able to check them out. Might be a fun game to go see. But certainly, against the Patriots as well. I wouldn't mind checking out. I've never went to a preseason game. I've went to certainly a couple of regular season games, but never a preseason game. So maybe some of you guys can tell me how fun it is to actually attend a preseason. But we don't care about preseason. We want to go to the regular season. So we're kicking things off, and this is interesting too. It seems like in years past, Washington had, and I mean, you look at the schedule, it's still kind of similar, but you had Washington usually having their first game of the season being at 1 o'clock. Most of the time, that's what I've seen. If it's not 1 o'clock, it's like, a primetime game or something like that. I mean, it's usually not like, a 4 o'clock game. So it's very unusual for the Commanders to start off with a 4 o'clock game in their first game of the season. But alas, it is a 4 o'clock game, and they're starting their season on the road in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers, of course, they went to the playoffs last year. It's going to be a fun game, I think. I mean, obviously, we will talk more about these games and we'll give predictions and all of that when we get closer to the season. But, on the road with Tampa starting off, it'll be an interesting game. And it's certainly going to be a tougher game because they are considered a playoff caliber team. They were in playoffs last year. But this is also not a team necessarily that they play on a very regular basis, I guess. I'm trying to think the last time, other than playoffs, that they actually played Tampa Bay during the regular season. The only thing, of course, that sticks out in my mind is the game against that you like that game, but I think they have played them since then. When we My mind is going blank this morning. I'm recording this in the morning. As you can see, I'm drinking coffee, so I'm kind of like, mind is just blank. So it's going to take me a little while to wake up this morning. But moving right along, let's not tarry. All right, so then we jump right into an NFC East matchup. This is going to be fun. The Giants. This would certainly be a game I would love to be able to go to. Actually, the last game I went to at FedEx was against the Giants. Now this has been a while ago. This has been like 2011. My wife and I were not married at that point, but that was the last game that we went to see. So anyway, we don't really get an NFC East game until November after that. So they're pushing all of the NFC East games later on in the season, which could get pretty interesting because it seems like as the NFC East progresses throughout the season, some of these teams, they either wear down or they get stronger, or you're really hitting them at a time where they're making a playoff run. And so it'll be interesting to see how the Commanders measure up to the Eagles, Cowboys, teams like that later on in the season when they face them. We're playing the Bengals, a primetime game. I think we have maybe four primetime games. We have at least three. That's what it looks like. Yes, three. We're playing the Cardinals. That would be kind of a homecoming game for Cliff Kingsbury. The Browns. And we've played the Browns quite a bit in the past few years, I've noticed. It used to be that you'd hardly ever see us playing the Browns. Occasionally you're going to see us playing the Browns, but not a whole lot. This year, playing the Browns. Now, I know that we will rotate certain AFC teams and NFC teams, or I should say divisions, that we play every single team in that division. I'll have to, once I actually completely wake up and look at this, I'll be able to tell you exactly which teams or which divisions that we're playing. But right off the bat, anyway, Ravens, that's always, the battle of the Beltway. That is always a very good game to watch. Ravens are always a tough team. John Hardball always has that team playing good football. So that's going to be interesting. Panthers. Now, certainly, if we were playing the Panthers on the road, that would almost be an automatic that I would be at that game because I'm only about an hour and a half out of Charlotte. So I would definitely have been at that game. And that's a 4 o'clock. This is interesting because both of these are East Coast teams, and this is a 4 o'clock game. So it's very interesting. I mean, we're seeing a lot of 4 o'clock games. A lot of them, actually. I mean, we're starting the season off with a 4 o'clock game, 4:25 to be specific. The Cardinals game is a 4 o'clock game. Panthers game is a 4 o'clock game. So it's very interesting. We don't have, in the years past, we didn't have a lot of those games like that. So very interesting. You can let me know in the comments, do you like 4 o'clock games, or would you rather the games be played right after church on Sunday? So Chicago. Now this is a game to kind of circle because assuming there's no injuries, this will be the game that you have number 1 going against number 2, Caleb Williams against Jaden Daniels, and this will be a fun game because I'm sure that those two quarterbacks are going to kind of want to prove, okay, who truly is better? Who's going to have the better game that day? Is it going to be the number one overall pick, or will the number two guy get one over on the number one? So that's going to be a fun game. Of course, we're going back playing the Giants, finishing out the series with the Giants in November. Then we got the Steelers. Normally I say, Steelers always tough. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Maybe it's Russell Wilson. Maybe it's Justin Fields at that point. We don't know. We really don't know. But that'd be interesting. I know I feel like a broken record because right now, we don't know how the season's going to go for any of these teams, of course, until we jump into the season. But it's always fun watching the Steelers. A lot of what I consider iconic games here, right? Steelers, Bears, and of course we always play the Giants. The Browns are always a fun game to watch. Then, of course, we start to get into more of the meat and potatoes of the NFC East in November. We get the Eagles, and that's another primetime game. And then we got the Cowboys the following week, actually 10 days later. We got them at 1 o'clock. That's a home game. That's close to Thanksgiving, so I don't know. I would love to be able to go to that game. I'm sure tickets are going to be outrageous. But I can just imagine, especially if our team is having a pretty good season at that point, I can just imagine how electrifying the stadium's going to be with having the Cowboys in town playing them. So that's going to be pretty fun. We'll see, though. We will see. I'm not money back, so I don't tend to have money. That's the reason why I watch these games on TV. We stay home the next week against the Titans. Then we go to the Saints December 15th. We finish up with the Eagles the following week on the road in Philly. Then the last two games, of course, that's when you start to get games that get switched around with their schedules, flex games and things like that. Going against the Falcons, and we're assuming Kirk Cousins is going to be playing. And then we're finishing up with Cowboys, which we tend to do quite a bit here lately. I've noticed the last several seasons we have finished up with the Cowboys. It almost seems to be that is just what's going to be happening for Washington is no matter what, at the end of the season, you're playing the Cowboys. And that could either mean absolutely nothing or it could mean a chance to go to the playoffs. It could mean, certainly it could mean a chance to win the NFC East because you look at years past, whenever we have played the Cowboys, except for last year, of course, it seemed like whenever we have played them last game of the season, then it's usually, that is going to tell if we're winning the NFC East. So is it going to be that way this year? We'll see. We will see. Overall, I'm not looking at this schedule going, man, this is brutal. We had some brutal schedules in the last couple of seasons. And I mean, as you start to get into the season, you may look at these teams and be like, oh my dear Lord. Certainly there's some winnable games, but a lot of these games, you look at it, they all are potential playoff teams, maybe the exception of the Panthers, but they're all playoff potential teams. So, I mean, it's probably a brutal schedule in terms of that, because, none of these teams are pushovers at all. And the Panthers are going to be improved. It's going to be year 2 for their quarterback. So it's going to be year 2, of course, for their coaching staff. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows? But, just glancing at it, it's not an easy schedule. It may not be a devastating schedule either. I think my theme to this video has been, it's going to be a fun schedule. And I think what you have to look at it in these terms, you're going to have some who are not, because they're just whatever. But you have to look at, like, we've got a new regime. We're going to be improved. I can already tell you that, with the level intensity and just the excitement in OTAs. You're going to have an improved football team from last year, regardless of what the scoreboard says, at the end of the year. This team's going to be improved. So, having said that, I think you're going to have a team that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. They're going to be a tough team. They're going to play hard. But you're going to see a higher level. I think you're going to have, hopefully, a coaching staff that's going to put their players, they're going to find the best things out of their players. They're going to put them in situations to succeed. Put them in situations they're comfortable with. And, instead of years past where it was like, this is a system, you either get comfortable with it or you don't. This is not that type of coaching roster that does that sort of thing. It's the exact opposite. My opinion, I think it's going to succeed more because you have players on your team that are very talented players. You know what they can do best, so put them in the position to succeed. I know sometimes some coaches, they're like, hey, if you want to improve, you got to go out there and do things you can't do well, because repetition and practice is going to make you better. I get that. But at the same time, you have to put your players in a position to succeed. And if you can do that, then eventually they are going to be able to get better, in my opinion, with some of the things that maybe they don't do as well. And then, just quite frankly, there's just certain things that some of your players are not built for. It was like John Riggins. He was built to run over top of people. He wasn't, he was built to go straight up the middle, not to go, was it north-south, and he was also not built to be a pass reception back out of the backfield, but he was a Hall of Famer because of what he did the best, what he excelled in. And so I think that this coaching staff is seeing that, and I think they're going to improve this team immensely. So, fun schedule. You let me know in the comments what you think about the schedule, what you think about more primetime games, because obviously there's a chance that the last 2 games, at least one of those 2 games, will be a primetime game, if not both. So we could have a potential of having, up to 5 primetime games. And, that's either good or bad, depending on how you look at it. For some of us who have to go into work the next day, it's not always a great thing, but it is what it is, folks. All right. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, give it a share. With that said, I will see you in the next one.